Welcome to our second session on our second redo of our presentations today on the Campus Master Plan Update. My name is Dennis Swinford. I am the Director of Campus Planning here at UMass Boston. Again, welcome to our presentation. I hope that I'm really excited to share this with all of you. We have our consultants who's been working with us here today to help present and hear your feedback. One thing that I'd like to ask everybody is please participate. And the best way, or the way to participate today, is to please type your questions into the question and answer box down at the bottom of the screen, not the chat box. We have that closed, so that's not going to work. So the question and answer box. And we're going to try our best to wait to the very end to answer questions so that we can give them the time that they're due and then consolidate the ones that make sense to consolidate. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Natasha Espada, who is the partner in the lead architecture firm that has been working on our Campus Master Plan Update. Natasha.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm Natasha Espada from Studio A Architects. We're a women and minority firm here in Boston. And we're working closely with Ayer St. Gross, as they're the master planners on the project. So we're very excited to be here, and Adam will introduce himself in a second, but we have a larger team here with us that you can't see. And so let's start the presentation. So Susan Kernite is also a Studio A, Beth Long, and Adam Gross are here from Ayer St. Gross. Thank you. So this is the agenda for today, are the meeting objectives. We're going to talk about those, the schedule and process. The master plan update, we're going to look at 5 different pieces, which is the planning principles and key drivers, the integrated healthy campus and sustainability, existing conditions, and then looking at summary of future space needs and exploring the options in the plan, which is really exciting. And Adam will talk about that, as well as he will also talk about the heritage building opportunities. And then we'll talk about next steps and discussion. So the next one is, we bring this up because this was something when we first started working on this project. This was something that was very impactful to us from the Chancellor, Marcelo Suarez Orozco, to develop a plan for our university that is data informed, adapts best practices to our unique campus, builds on and enhances our significant existing assets, creates opportunities where we have gaps, and is bold yet realistic in its ambitions. And we've used this throughout our entire process, which started last November. We can talk about the schedule so far. So meeting objectives for today is to engage in a dialogue that supports the alignment of the physical campus with the strategic plan. These two have been going on simultaneously and working together on both. And we want to receive input from you on the direction of key master plan recommendations in anticipation of the draft master plan document, which will be put out in December. And so the schedule and the process so far, we have 3 separate areas of the schedule, and we've already covered 2. So the first one was Discover and Analyze, which was from November of 2021 through April of 2022, where we gathered information, did tours, looked at the facilities, and did a space analysis. We had 3 workshops in that area, kickoff and 3 workshops. And I think some of you have been involved throughout the process at different points. The second part was Explore, which we did from April through June of 2022. And that was a campus analysis, master plan programming, planning principles, concepts, and scenarios. And that had workshop 4 in May and workshop 5 in June. And then we're in the refine and document phase from June through December, which is when the final documentation will occur. We just had, this is where we do the draft plan and phasing, final plan, documentation, and then the technical analysis documentation. And where that blue box is, where it says open forums with faculty, staff, and students and community engagement, that's where we are right now. So we're really excited to show you where we are. And so first of all, we want to tell you about our process. It's been equitable, inclusive, and transparent. We've had working group sessions, 6 of them. We've reviewed presentations with strategic chairs, different 40 stakeholder group and individual interviews with over 275 individuals. We did surveys of the campus, presentations, and drop-in sessions. And here on the right, you can see all the different forms in a hybrid way. We've done Zoom meetings, we've done in person, and it's we feel like we've done a lot. We've looked at it from a lot of different venues and a lot of different perspectives. So the 10 comments we heard most frequently is the poor condition of the heritage buildings and how it impacts productivity of everyone on campus. Cultural diversity, that it should be reflected in our physical space. We know you're the most diverse campus in the state school system, university system. We should leverage the Boston location, great location, and how do we connect to the community and leverage the location. And then how do we make a more welcoming campus? Again, because it's a gated community without a gate. So how can we do that? The library needs to be the hub of student access, but there isn't enough student space. And so how do we find student space in all of the buildings? We need spaces for collaboration, but we have space constraints. They have a negative impact on current programs and impede future growth. So how do we deal with that and find solutions? And a better wayfinding would improve sense of belonging, and there needs to be better connectivity and accessibility between the buildings. And so now for the master plan update, we're going to go first through the planning principles and the healthy campus, existing conditions, and then Adam will talk about future space needs and synthesized plan options and plans. So the first thing that we did was we aligned the principles, the planning principles with the strategic plan. So the first one was to create a welcoming, inclusive, and health promoting UMass Boston campus. The second one is to invest in a high quality, inclusive learning environment that supports the university's core values. The third one is to create a physical campus that supports community university reciprocal engagement. Fourth is to leverage the assets and resources to support a sustainable, resilient, and nimble campus. And so the next slide shows the key drivers that we had. It's on-campus undergraduate enrollment will remain constant, but the graduate enrollment is likely to increase. And one important thing is to enhance student experience through renovation of the heritage buildings is a priority because it's inequitable. And I'll show you a slide in a second that shows that. So over time, we're going to look at strategically adding additional space in traditional and innovative means. And that's what Adam's going to talk about in a second. We will seek to make physical and meaningful connections with our neighbors on the peninsula and with the Boston metropolitan region, which is really important. At first it was built as kind of an inclusive campus, exclusive campus. Now we want it to be as inclusive as possible, and encouraging the integration of the calf pasture development as an opportunity with the strategic and the campus master plan. And so this is about integrated healthy campus elements and value. This is very important. So I'm just going to touch a little bit on it. We want it to be the campus. We want it to be intuitive and accessible. We want to have better outdoor connectedness. We want to have recreation be part of this with additional green space and plantings. We want to use the campus as a living lab. And we want wayfinding that simplifies pedestrian connections and promotes orientation. It's very important to celebrate cultural heritage and find out how to do that on the campus, to increase outdoor comfort, and to have more transparency between indoors and outdoors. We want to make sure that there are human scaled elements throughout the campus so that the pedestrian students, staff, everyone feels comfortable and welcome. And we want vibrancy in all of the buildings and outdoor environments. Transit connections and bicycle networks is something that is really important. And then showcasing campus sustainability. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And then the other one is signage and receptacles for managing waste and resources. So for sustainability, we're following Executive Order 594, which makes 95% emissions reduction. And we're doing it in 3 ways: through energy efficiency, minimizing fossil fuels, on and off site renewable energy. And basically, this is all coordinated with the strategic plan and the energy and carbon master plan. And then, so for existing conditions, what did we see? So we have 4 colors here. The red are buildings that are in poor condition and need full renovation, which are the heritage buildings, Healy, McCormick, and Wheatley. The pink color, which is fair poor condition, needs significant renovation, which is Clark, Quinn, and the Supply building. And then we have the green buildings, which have the light green are in good condition. They're 20 years old, but need a little bit of renovation. Some of it is programmatic and some of it is physical. And then the newly built buildings, which are the darker green, which is University Hall and the Residence Hall and the IBC and the ISC, sorry, and the garage are all in good condition because they're recently built. And then there's utility infrastructure that's ongoing that's behind Healy. So this is kind of the big picture of what we saw, and the heritage buildings are the ones that probably need that we know need the most work. And so the summary is that there's a significant disparity in equity in the condition of the buildings on campus. Besides roofing and elevators, the original heritage buildings have had minimal renovations. So again, those need to be prioritized. The newer buildings are in pretty good condition. And then there's an opportunity of the new landscape quad, the SDQDO project, and major upgrades to campus utility systems there's new work that is going on campus and is really going to transform the campus. With that, I'll hand it over to Adam.
Thanks, everyone. So great to be with you all. I think we have about 36 participants, so we welcome you all, and I hope there's a good mixture of students, faculty, and staff in the group today. In addition to Susan and Natasha from Studio NA, I'm also joined by my colleague, Beth Long, who has really done the bulk of the work in these slides you're about to see. So Natasha has walked us through a whole series of qualitative issues, conditions of buildings, sustainability, guiding principles. And we are trying to use those as the foundation for this plan to create a flexible roadmap for UMB's future. But we also need to take into account quantitative issues, so that being focused on space. So this slide is a little startling for those of you who are seeing it for the first time, because it's showing that currently, if we don't add any more students, if we just look at the current amount of square feet on campus to meet the student need, we're short somewhere between 600 and 700,000 gross square feet. That the difference between the net numbers and the gross is that the gross numbers include all the bathrooms and corridors and elevator shafts and stairs, whereas the 300 to 400 is just the space in between the usable walls. But the 600 to 700 is what we look at for the entire building kind of footprint, and that's a large chunk of space that's necessary to meet UMB's mission and support your teaching and research and student life programs. But we are not proposing to do that all through new buildings. So that's, we think, good news. We really, to build on Natasha's point about the heritage buildings, about Wheatley, McCormick, Healy, Quinn, those buildings can really be much more flexible and efficient through renovations as opposed to building new. So we're suggesting significant renovations to all the heritage buildings to increase the utilization of existing space. And then we are identifying a few sites for new construction. We also have the land to the north, which is called the, Dennis, I'm going to get it wrong again, sheep meadow.
Calf pasture.
Calf pasture, I know. I call it sheep meadow somehow, it's locked in my head. The calf pasture, which includes the pumping station. And that land is being put out to request for proposals for real estate developers to come in and work with UMB to develop kind of a new college town, and I'll explain that more in a minute. So again, there are 4 ways that we can make up this deficit of space that's necessary: renovations, better utilization of existing space, new construction, and then creative partnerships. So how does that space get made up of that 330 to 400,000 net square feet? The top line is your existing distribution of space, and the bottom line is our proposal of how that additional space of about 1.4 million would get redistributed. And you'll notice 2 or 3 colors that are growing significantly from the current mix of space to what we see in the future. And those are the spaces that are kind of gold and yellow and green, which are open labs, student space, and athletics and rec. We also are showing an increase in classroom, a modest increase in faculty offices, thinking that a lot of the demand for faculty offices can be taken care of through hybrid work, and then student health. But the real big growth is in athletics and student life, which we're excited about. So we took that data, all the data that Natasha shared with you, the goals and aspirations of the plan, taking advantage of this incredible setting, how we want to build incrementally over time and creating more equity between the quality of the buildings. And we started to do a series of scenarios. And in all these scenarios, the light blue is showing renovations. So renovations to Healy, to McCormick, and to Wheatley. So just to orient everybody. So here's Wheatley, McCormick. Sorry, here's Wheatley, McCormick in the library, and then Quinn to the far upper left. So we looked at these different scenarios that looked at different ways of renovating the existing buildings, and also showed locations for new buildings out on the peninsula adjacent to the quad and in the area where the loading docks are now. And we tested those and vetted them, worked with Dennis's staff and Dennis and the team and our steering committee, and basically came up with a concept. Go to the next slide. That is really about building on a lot of the opportunities that each one of those individual plans show, but this kind of coalesces the best ideas from that plan. And it begins with trying to create a better first impression to campus. So when you come in to campus, we really want to improve the current condition from being the back of a loading dock to something that's more attractive and more health inspiring. To do that, we're showing the possibility of relocating the central receiving between McCormick and Wheatley. And by doing that, we can free up the space to accommodate a new building. The other thing that we're trying to do is really reinforce the north, south, and east-west connections so that we can open up views to the water. Someone this morning referred to this space over here between Healy and the Science Building as the road to nowhere, and we have some proposals for that. And then the big land bay development areas for new buildings are north of the quad and east of Wheatley. But all of this blue that you're seeing in here is showing massive renovations to Wheatley, Healy, and McCormick over time. So with that in mind, we came up with kind of a concept diagram that looked at where is all this new needed student life space going to go. So currently the student life space you see on the left is in these golden areas, kind of it's quite small and not very tied together. And what we see as a future plan is to have this kind of ring of student activity spaces around the new quad so that when you're in that quad, you can connect directly to ground level activity spaces that are internal. Some of them could be teaching spaces, some of them could be meeting rooms, some of them could be student clubs, really focus that activity on the quad. So with that concept plan in mind, we went back to the drawing boards and we kind of combined the best ideas from those three schemes into this recommended final draft plan. So I'll walk through it kind of the same way I did a second ago, but it starts with the idea that we can build this new central shipping and receiving area between Wheatley and McCormick. If we do that, we can then free up this space to create a new building that would kind of attach to the existing shipping building and to Quinn, renovate those buildings. And this zone that's kind of right along here, this linear zone, would be a kind of mini atrium with stairs and escalators that would take you up to the main quad level and get you on the central walk that opens up to the water. The other kind of smaller insertions are an idea where we could locate greenhouses, an idea where we could locate a new central plant to meet energy needs as well as sustainability goals, a new building that would primarily be student life and student health and wellness, and an expansion of a rec center. So we can get the existing rec center out of its academic building that it's in today, a new future academic building here, and then another future academic building here. So the future academic buildings are in the range of about 200,000 square feet or 150,000 square feet, but that's not enough to make up our space demands. But when you add in the renovations of Healy and McCormick, you can start really getting to a parity with our overall space goals. So it really is about trying to better define this quadrangle, activate it with new student life activities on the ground floors. And we also are introducing a new athletic field, so we don't have to rely as much on our neighbors to the north. And underneath that athletic field, we're recommending tucking in a couple levels of parking. So as Dennis said, we'll go through your questions at the end. I hope you're jotting them down now as I go through some of these descriptive slides. So really three big elements: renovations of the heritage buildings, new construction, and then the land to the north. This is the calf pasture area that includes the old power plant, a pumping station. But all of this would be done by a developer partner, hopefully sometime in the next hopefully that process will start sometime in the next several years. So some of the space demands could be accommodated, whether it's graduate housing or market rate housing or life science or lab or even office and classroom that might be able to be accommodated in that calf pasture land. So that's a two-dimensional look at what we're proposing. This next slide is a 3D look. So you're up in a balloon kind of over the southeast corner of the campus. So you can see this very significant new academic building out on the point. The blue areas indicate where we would be renovating Wheatley and McCormick and Healy. It shows our new gateway building at the far west end of the quad. It shows that new parking garage with a green roof on top of it here, the new student life and rec building, and then a new academic building here as well. So this plan that you see here would not all be built at once. It would all be reliant on funding and phasing, but it gives you kind of a sense of our goal of having a flexible roadmap that is based on principles, that is based on the goals that the chancellor and others have articulated through our process to really build a more healthy, equitable, and really welcoming campus. So the next slide is a view from the other side, looking over the parking garage at that current entry where you come in today and you're greeted with the loading dock and dumpsters adjacent to the science building. And what you're seeing here is an idea, again, of the loading being relocated over here by McCormick. And that would allow us to position a new building on this site, which could contain a kind of welcoming tower, glass towers, you'll see in a second, with an idea that you could then have a cascading staircase and escalators that would get you up to the main quad level in a more elegant and easy way. And your first impression would be dramatically changed as a first-time visitor or daily user of the campus. So the next slide shows you that ground level view of what it looks like today with the science building to your right, the housing there in the distance, and the parking garage on your left. And as if by magic, this next rendering shows you our proposal for this new building that could create this glassy beacon and become a new academic building front door for the campus. And if you could imagine that you're getting dropped off by an Uber or you're arriving by car and crossing the street from the garage and you enter into this space, the concept for the space is it would be at least a 3-story high kind of atrium space that would go back and have within it staircases that would, and elevators that would take you back down and create a kind of cascading arrival point up to the quad level. So this next slide shows you what that might look like if you were standing at the top of that stair looking back down. This is a building we completed recently at the University of Maryland, about a 300,000 square foot teaching and learning center. But it's organized around this one central big stair that connects back down to grade and to the higher part of campus. We also are very interested, if you go to the next slide, in thinking about transparency. So these brutalist buildings that are the heritage buildings are mostly concrete and brick. And this is your sister institution, UMass South Dartmouth, which shows, in this case, where the old building used to end. So where this concrete is that I'm circling is where the building exterior wall used to be. And the architects here did what we're proposing, which is to layer on a new glass skin and capture the space that really was outdoor space, thereby making the entire building much more transparent, as you can see on the far left and far right. So this is important to us to make the buildings more visible and attractive and transparent as you approach them, but also once you're inside the buildings to be able to look out to the wonderful ocean views and into the quad. So there are lots of opportunities to do this in the heritage buildings. That road to nowhere slot between Healy and McCormick that one of your colleagues brought up this morning, we are recommending that be replaced by this kind of cascading landscape series of terraces and stairs to connect from the quad level back down to the water. And if you imagine coming up from the water and going between Healy and McCormick, you would keep walking and go underneath a bridge that connects that new rec center that we showed, attaching it to the current athletic facility. We talked about an increase of parking, but also an increase of the field space. So this is an example of a parking garage that has an athletic field on top of it. So this is the recommendation that we have for the area north of the new quad that then would be lined by a new academic building to the south. So those are just some vignettes of what we could envision, but we now really want to dive into how we might think about renovating the heritage buildings and how we could make Wheatley a prototype that would create a building that's on par with all of your other new buildings and really create that equity between quality and quantity of space. So we begin by just looking at what type of spaces are in Healy or want to be in Healy. And what we discovered is that there's a need for smaller classrooms in the range of 30 to 60 seats. There's a need for additional class labs to serve engineering and chemistry. There's a need for a lot more student support space, as you saw in those earlier charts. So again, you see the gold and yellow on the far right is increasing from the existing bar chart here to the bottom of what we're proposing. So that's the amount of space we're thinking we could fit into Wheatley, but what should that space look like? So on the left is the existing condition in Wheatley, really not a very inspiring classroom. And on the left, and really set up very much so the teacher is the object of like the sage on the stage, as opposed to scenarios like you see on the right, where students could get into breakout groups and work among themselves and be on flexible furniture. Glass, we think, is something that really could benefit the classrooms themselves and still deal with issues of projection and, through flat screens and high definition projectors. But almost all the new teaching and research spaces that we're doing now are incorporating more glass and transparency. The common spaces also obviously have lots of room for improvement and really from what they are now. And the building on the right is a library actually at Arizona State University, an old mid-century modern, very brutalist kind of building that we totally got renovated. And so it has the same opportunities that Wheatley has just by adding better lighting, better flooring material, better and more fun furniture, and also significant amounts of glass that opens up into the teaching spaces. Then the corridors, we really want these to be more lively, more welcoming, places where people want to really linger and hang out and have appropriate furniture so students can meet with faculty, not necessarily just in their office, but in more informal settings like you see here. And then this is that same example we showed from UMass Dartmouth, but it shows you compared to the current situation at Wheatley, and this is the same at McCormick and Healy, where you have these columns that are outside of the main functional enclosed space. So in this case, we would envision this entire zone becoming glass, kind of capturing that space as indoor space. So you don't have this very dark understory. You walk immediately into the building out at the face of this brick and create a much more transparent entry and light-filled arrival and atrium. So if you look at the plan on the left, lower left, this is the existing Wheatley. So when you walk in, you're going underneath that big overhang. So the columns are showing you the building line above, right? So, and if you look on the upper right, those columns are out here along this line. This red line is the existing interior, or the existing exterior wall, excuse me, of Wheatley. So what we're suggesting is pushing out the interior space to align with those columns, capture that space, make that all glass, and also take this corridor, which is now very confusing and you don't really know where you are once you start diving into Wheatley, make a much more clear circulation that is open to the views. So you'd be able to walk in, turn right, and look all the way out to the water by incorporating an open student lounge at the end. And then you can see a mix of smaller classrooms ranging from 30 to 40 seats, retention and renovation of the existing auditorium. And then in the center, we're showing this as a major new atrium to really gather and organize you, and that could have a cafe and food service in it. So the next slide shows some examples of what these spaces might look like. So that big atrium space could look like this. The lounge spaces of the project we just showed you, or flexible labs and maker spaces and workspaces, or open areas to the quad and to adjacent McCormick, and then a whole range of different types of classrooms. So that's a typical floor of what might be a renovated classroom floor, and then we go up to the faculty floors. This just shows, again, the idea of more common space, more meeting space, more flexibility. So people would still obviously have faculty offices, but there would be a range of different types of meeting areas for not just group meeting, but also to meet with students. So that is a pretty quick snapshot. I'm going to turn it over to Dennis just to talk about how this all applies in terms of our goal of connecting it back to the strategic plan.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Natasha. And I just wanted to go quickly over this chart. It may be a little bit difficult to read, but I wanted to begin to show how some of the big concepts of the master plan fit within and match and help support the strategic plan. So the top right, or the top row, if you will, is our principles that we went through earlier in the presentation. And then in terms of creating a welcoming environment, and then looking at ways in increasing and making our learning environments more supportive to our core values. Create a physical campus that connects to the community, and we have reciprocal engagements, meaning that we go out to the community and the community comes to UMass Boston. And then the fourth is really our very important principle of becoming sustainable and resilient and have a nimble future. So with those planning principles, which we went over earlier, down the left-hand column, the far left-hand column, are the big concepts. And I won't necessarily read all of these, but I'd like to pull out a few and highlight them. One of the most important and ones that I am really quite excited about is the heritage building renovations. Really the ability to create equity for our human core. It's one of the values that's talked about quite a bit in our current strategic plan, and creating those environments in those buildings and make them more equitable to what other environments are on campus is a really important part of this master plan. Then another one I would like to highlight is the ability to create new research facilities that's necessary so that we're able to invest in supporting and going after the answers that are required in the grand scholarly challenges that are in our strategic plan. I'll let you all, when you download this presentation that will be available on the website, you can certainly go through and see how the big concepts of the master plan really begin to fit in, support, and link into our strategic plan that we just published a couple of weeks ago. So with that, I think that we are able to go to the next slide. And I want to just take a quick minute to really thank the master plan working group that has been working all along with us. They are our colleagues here on the campus, and you probably noticed some of their names. I encourage you to, if you see somebody's name here that you know and is a friend or a colleague, you're welcome to walk up to them and ask them about the master plan and give them ideas and talk with them about it, and it will get back to us. Then I also do want to send a special thanks out to our master plan team made up of a lot of consultants, but the lead consultants being Studio NA and Air St. Gross. So thank you everybody for all your work. We still have some left to do. We're not at the complete end line yet, but we look forward to having the plan done early by the end of the year, early next year. So with the next slide, please. So as I said, we have the draft master plan will be sent out for our working group to review later on in November. Final documentation and that will be final documentation will be December or January. Please, from today, beyond what we're going to get to here in a minute, we're going to have a nice chunk of time to have a discussion with all of you. But if you have any questions or comments after today, please submit them to the master plan at UMB. And then there are already there a lot of great links to presentations at our facilities webpage. And these two presentations today will be there also. So you'll be able to link to these presentations and we'll be able to download the slides from that location also. So with that kind of cleanup, we'll go to, I'd like to go to the questions. And we have the first question is, yes, I think I want to make sure that everybody understands that we do have land out on Nantucket. And it is part of our master plan. We are going to fold it further into the draft as we go through, and we haven't forgotten about it, and we're going to continue to fold that in to the draft. And you and I can talk about it more and where we are in that process and what we're going to be.
In fact, Dennis, in the presentation we made to the steering committee last week or this last week,
yes,
we had a lot more slides because we had a bit more time. With that group, and so we did have a couple of slides of the Nantucket Field Station, which I hope to visit one day. It was amazing.
Yes, thank you, Adam, for reminding me that we did that. So we have taken that into account. The next one is from Elizabeth, and Elizabeth actually sent me a nice email a week ago, and I asked her to participate today and bring these questions to the meeting. The first one, I think, the first one is the catwalks. She wants to, she asks if the catwalks are going to be brought back. And I think we can answer that question and we'll go on and hit the other ones as need be. But the catwalks right now are not in the plan. Or bringing back the catwalks are not in the plan. A couple of reasons for that. They are going to be incredibly expensive to add back, and with the condition of Wheatley, McCormick, Healy being in the condition that they are, it was hard to prioritize or think about bringing the catwalks back at the cost that they were going to take, that they were going to be. We have also just invested a lot of money in creating a wonderful outdoor environment between the buildings with the new quad. So we'll be able to soon enjoy the new quad, enjoy the new landscape, and be at the plaza level in a much different environment than we have ever had before here at UMass Boston. Her second question was signage. Signage is Yes, we all agree that signage it needs improving here. It's one of the first things. I actually was walking around between the presentations today, beginning to look on how to create a more comprehensive and cohesive and welcoming signage package for the campus. So stay tuned. That's coming soon. I think we answered the parking question, but Elizabeth, if we didn't, please chime in at the end of this. At the end of the question and answer box, and we can come back to that. Classrooms, we handled classrooms. I think we answered the classroom question pretty well. Bathrooms, we would absolutely do bathrooms. As we renovate, there are a lot of reasons why we would do that. And then I hope that your last point, Elizabeth, overall, the universities do not feel human scaled now. It has an alienating vibe, which is a bummer. Yeah, I think we're trying to add some. We are adding some really great greenscape that's going to be here soon, and then with the building improvements, making great views out to the water, and really beginning to bring all of our buildings up to a really great standard that we all deserve, will help us come out of the bummer category. And then next question from Beth again, Elizabeth again, is Bayside is closing soon. Where's extra parking on campus? And I think that we answered the parking question. We have the ability to make that deck underneath the playing field a number of levels if we need to. So at the time when we get ready to design and have the funding for that field and that parking deck, we'll be able to size that to accommodate the need that we have on campus. And then Diane, I think was a parking question. I think we answered the parking question, but again, if we didn't, we chime back in. Alexander made a comment about, have you seen a trend towards incorporating natural light into classrooms and offices? I think we answered that one really well. And then she goes on to say, proven by public health and sustainability studies to lower mental health challenges and increase energy efficiency. So yes, absolutely, Alexander, we've seen that, and we really do look forward to incorporating the ability to bring more natural light into particularly our learning environments and the places that we work. John asks, will McCormick Cafe be demolished and that space incorporated into a rehabbed lobby? John, that is a project that we are currently working on and has been funded, and we are going to be able to probably see that in the next year. I think we're going to try to do that over the break, and we will see kind of that happen here as a quick action item. And Yvonne, you bet. You're welcome. Yvonne says, thanks, that's great. And then another question, exciting and nice renderings, greenhouses for research and education tours. A conversation will be great for the campus and the community. So yes, as we get funding for the greenhouses and begin to have a discussion about how to fund the greenhouses and how to develop the greenhouses, other tours and conservation and other tours of other campuses would be something we could do. Diane has asked about the boatyard, and we actually have plans, and that was one of the ideas that got cut out for time's sake today, Diane. So we can certainly get into that in more detail later. Would Alana, the elimination of catwalks in the underground garages have made it challenging in terms of moving things across campus that cannot be exposed to the outside elements. Has there been any discussion as how these items will move between buildings? For example, if we have a piece of sensitive research equipment delivered to central receiving, how will it ultimately be moved to ISC? There are a lot of campuses, Adam can help me answer that question, but there are a lot of campuses that deal with that in a lot larger scale than we do. Adam, do you have any detailed experience on how sensitive things get moved to campus when you don't have catwalks?
Well, typically it's under kind of below grade in a campus that I could think about that's compared to UMass Boston being kind of up on a plinth, so typically below grade. And so I think as the service and loading area gets relocated, and I think we have begun discussions with Dennis's staff who worry about loading and service of where wheel, dollies and whatnot could go outside of the kind of public realm, so below the main circulation levels in the old basement that was the old parking garage.
Okay. And then can you tell when a building will be built for the Manning College of Nursing and Health Science? Maria, no. The answer to that question is I can't tell you when, but I can tell you that we're working on it. And our plan really depends upon funding. As you probably all know, it depends upon the disposition of the Dorchester Bay City development proposal that is up at Bayside. And so there are a lot of funding and money questions that are still unknown, but we're going to work towards setting priorities and seeking funding for all of these things as we go forward. But we now have a plan that we can talk to people about, get them excited about it. So we really hope that this is the first step to getting some new new environments and space that we need on campus built and developed or renovated. And then we have another question from Maria. How are you working with the folks who aren't connected to the working group, who have specific space needs? For example, UNB has a university-wide writing center that needs its own independent and well thought out space. How can we make our needs heard? Maria, I think that today just bringing that up is a great first step. Writing centers and student success spaces are something that we have earmarked for going into, possibly going into a new Keeley, kind of a rethought library and student success center. As we begin to plan and look at that, we look forward to working with our new Dean of Libraries on bringing all those things together, possibly in the library. So again, and Maria, if you have any specific ideas, please continue to let us know, and we can fold them into this process. John, is that recreation/student life facility large enough to house not only fitness areas but also indoor basketball courts with an overarching track, or is this question too specific right now? I would say maybe it's a little bit too specific, John, but including an indoor track is something that sometimes happens in those types of facilities. And as we begin to program and look at developing that building, kind of the programmatic needs and how we accommodate those is something that we would look at as we do that.
It would definitely accommodate a basketball court in addition to the fitness. Just the question of whether we could get a track, an elevated track could work.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. Alana, the outdoor spaces are nice, but it's problematic when you're trying to move an incubator across campus in the middle of January. Yes, Alana, that is absolutely something that we need to work through, and we will continue to look at that. Ivana, pool, no. Ivan, pool, no pool at this point in time. Sam, is the new parking garage going to be available when Bayside closes, or will there be a lag between the closure of Bayside and new parking deck opening? If so, what is the plan for the interim? There is a large surface parking lot that is part of the SPQD project that is going to be built and opened before Bayside closes. So we will have enough parking spots on campus to accommodate Bayside once SDQD is completed. So we have a very sophisticated and intricate parking plan, and that's part of the plan. And then another question: are there other plans for indoor corridors if the catwalks aren't coming back, particularly with moving the shipping receiving seems problematic. Library staff currently travel indoor to collect sensitive packages and delicate materials. Getting them, I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing, I apologize, and delicate material, donated archival collections, and getting to the new locations during bad weather and pushing carts across the quad while students are traveling to classes seems hugely inconvenient. Jenny, we continue to need to do that, to need to look at this. But at this point in time, I think that the ability to move that material will be something we'll need to kind of continue to look at, and how we accommodate that operationally. Andrew says, this is awesome to hear. Thanks. What would be the rough square footage of the Recreation and Wellness Center? Thanks. Andrew, I'm not sure we have that yet. Do we have, Elizabeth, do we know about what we've illustrated there in terms of the footprint?
It is again in one of the slides that we took out, but I believe, if memory serves, it's about 120,000 gross square feet.
Yeah,
so
and that is
it's big enough to accommodate all sorts of rec and athletic needs, and in addition, some academic space or research space that might be related or co-located. So I think the footprint is a great opportunity, but like you said, Dennis, the program specifics are yet to come.
Yes. Elizabeth says, thanks for addressing my comments. More computer labs would also be good. I think the ability to create places where students need to work is something that we'll continue to look at. And she says, still sad about no catwalks. It's cold and snowy for most of the school year, so using outdoor spaces is really a possibility for most of the academic year. Landscaping, the first impression for everyone, including current and prospective faculty, staff, and students. This is from Jeffrey. At the present, our outdoor spaces are not very welcoming. We are preparing to open a new quad, and your plan proposes a host of new outdoor spaces. Did the group address landscaping specifically, and how it should be addressed in the future? Jeff, I think that the ability to kind of what I would call operationalize the plan, what we're asking to do, and the resources it takes to have the plan come alive and be operationalized is something that we'll continue to look at as those facilities are brought on. And then we have a thanks from John. John has also asked, not getting into the Clark gym until after varsity if is a hardship. Very good news about hearing indoor hoop court is a possibility. Yeah, the ability to have a variety of different spaces for all of our athletes to practice in is important. Maria, this is a comment that feels important. That's great. I like these kinds of things. I'm worried about the vision of only minimally increasing faculty offices and the idea that faculty can meet with students in these more lounge-like formal spaces. While those are nice and can work in some contexts, students are often discussing confidential information, and faculty need space to do their writing, research, and have additional meetings. Some of us need to have Zoom meetings even because our homes are not set up for virtual work. Maria, yes, I absolutely understand that comment, and I do feel that it's important. I think we all do, and I think it's something that we're kind of trying to work through. We all understand that we're at a different part of our campus development now that we've all experienced the COVID together and the pandemic together. I think what the plan seeks to do is to take the good things that we learned from the pandemic and bring them into how we teach our students and how we work. And hopefully just rethinking about that, working with all of you on how we do that is going to be something fun and important. Fun and important things that we do as we renovate our heritage building. So thank you for that comment. John, dimensions of field. John, it's big enough to host NCAA lacrosse and soccer, correct, Beth?
Yes, it's based on NCAA standards for soccer and men's and women's lacrosse. It has ample overrun space and protection for, it would have ample protection for overrun space. We're even looking at the possibility of some stadium or some spectator seating.
Got it. And I'm not 100% sure, John, I understand your last comment here. It says it looks larger than the one shown in the new green area where it was originally drawn. Well, I think we answered the question. Programmatically, we're going to be able to do, when it's built, soccer, NCAA soccer, and NCAA lacrosse on that. That brings most of our sports on campus. We still have not, we were not able to accommodate a NCAA track and field venue. So that's something that we continue to look at innovative ways to make that venue available for our athletes. So that ends all of the questions in the chat. Team, do you have anything that you would like to add before we sign off? So not hearing anything, I'd like to thank everybody that participated, and I'll remind you that you'll be able to find this recording on our website, at our facilities website at umb.edu/facilities. And again, you're welcome to reach out to me or with additional comments and thoughts, or to one of the working group members that we had up on the screen earlier. So with that, thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon, and have a wonderful evening.